is Makita's 305mm sliding compound miter saw. This saw is completely battery powered. It runs off the singular 40V battery. But the main thing is, how long does a battery last for? I'm going to set up a test now, and I'm going to continuously cut a bit of 2x4 pine and see how many cuts we can get before the battery dies. For this test, I want to make sure the blade comes to a complete stop before every single cut. This has to be the biggest question and the biggest make or break from this tool. If it's a battery saw and you have to replace batteries quicker than they can charge, it's not worth it. I'm hoping we get 150 plus cuts on this. For a comparison, I can compare this to my DeWalt miter saw. Now the DeWalt one does have two 6-amp batteries, and with those two batteries, we got 232 cuts doing the same test. I'm not expecting those results. We're running a singular battery with 4 amps. That's dead. What's just happened is it's run out of power to actually use the brake to slow that down after the cut. What we can actually do is, if we try it now, it should turn on again. That same thing happened again, and we might be able to get another 5 to 10 cuts by taking the battery in, putting it out. But the battery stops itself before reaching zero. It kind of protects the lifespan of the battery. So when your battery dies, it's not a good practice to keep trying to push all the force out of it. The worst thing about this saw was just made apparent during that test, and that has to do with these extraction ports. Now there's actually 2 different ports. We've got one which leads straight to the back here, and that's for a dust bag, and that moves with the sliding saw. And you just put a dust bag on that port, and your other port's around this side, and that's for the vacuum attachment. I haven't used it with the vac, but when you do not have the vac attached, because of the right angles in this port, all the sawdust gets clogged up, and if the vac isn't attached, it's just going to hit that wall of sawdust and bounce right back into your face. So that's a big problem. You can't really use this saw neatly without having that vac. So this does take a 305mm blade, and it can cut a maximum depth of 107mm, and also a width of 268mm. The 40V battery produces enough power to spin this blade 3,600 times a minute. I wonder if anyone's ever actually checked the RPM data. I don't know if you could go in slow motion and count each spin to see how true that really is. The blade also has a constant speed control, and that maintains the blade speed when it's going through high load applications. So it can go up to 60 degrees in miters, going both ways. Super easy to do that too. We've got this dial at the front, which we loosen, and once that's loose, you just push down this tab, and you can spin it. Now if you release that tab, it's just going to lock in at any of your standard degrees, being your 30 degrees, 31.6, 45, 60 degrees. To go past them, you just hold that tab down, and if you want to go in a degree in between, you just leave it on that, tighten the dial, and that's locked in place. It's not going to move. In terms of the bevels, we do have 48 degrees both ways. Same thing, we've got a dial on the front here, and we can drop that easily to 45 degrees, and we've actually got a tab at the back here. We've got to push that tab forward, and then we've got access to the 46, 47, 48 degrees. Once again, any degrees in the middle, you put the saw where you want it, tighten that dial, hand tight, and that's stuck on that degree. It's not going to move. So one of my favourite features with this sliding compound saw is we've got the rail here, and the saw actually slides on the rail. I've got other saws, and you actually have the rail that slides out back past the saw. The reason why this is so good is when I've been using the saw, I've had it hard up against the wall, and if the rail slides backwards out behind the saw, it just means you've got to leave that extra room towards the wall, and if you're working in a small house, there's not a lot of room, that does become quite crucial. Working in an awesome site at the moment, like the views are unreal. There's another site next door, I'm not sure how much of that noise we're picking up right now. So I'll show you what we're doing today. We're actually installing a lot of this spotted gum shiplap cladding. If we have a few looks at the house right now, you can see how much we've already done, and I have been using this miter saw for all of it so far. I'm feeling quite fortunate right now to be working in such a cool location, doing a cool job, and it's the best place to actually do a review of the saw. So a few other features we have is we've got this expandable side table here. So you can see that can actually pull in and out from the saw, and that just helps if you're cutting a little bit longer materials. I rarely ever use that. I'm always going to be using a bench which has extendable arms, but it is a good little thing to have if you are setting the saw straight down on the ground. Actually, another feature too that it has, which is a good feature, but it does have its downside, and that's the shadow line technology. If you're unfamiliar with that, we've got a light on the top of the saw which I can set to turn on when I go to cut. And that light is going to cast a shadow of the blade on your workpiece and showing you exactly where that blade's going to cut. So I mean, that concept's awesome. It does work right now, it's going to be working beautifully. But if I ship outside and that sun is beaming down on my work, you're not going to see that line at all. That line isn't going to apply out there. So it is a cool feature that you have, but you can't always count on it and always use it. You'll see next to that light button as well, there's actually a vac button, and that applies to the Bluetooth feature. And when you're thinking of Bluetooth, no, it does not mean that you can turn the saw on when you're not there. There's no point for that, that's dangerous, it's a stupid mechanism. It applies to having the vacuum attached and pairing it with the vacuum. And what happens is when you go and you turn the blade on and you cut with your saw, when you turn the saw on, the vac's going to turn on. That also means when you release the trigger, the blade stops spinning, stops producing dust, that vacuum's also going to turn off. Just keeping that workplace a bit quieter and also preserving the life of your battery. Now, one thing it comes with, and I've lost straight away, I've never ever used these, but it comes with clamps which you can install here and clamp your workpiece down so that when you cut it, your offcut isn't going to fall off, it's not going to move, you're not going to, you know, kind of cut out of a straight line. Awesome concept, something I've never used once. If I'm ever cutting a big beam, I'm always just going to not use this bench. I hate this DeWalt bench right now, but use a proper bench. So you can buy the saw in Australia, skin only for $13.99. When you hear skin only, if you don't know what that means the saw, the tool, without the batteries or chargers included. With the batteries and chargers, you can get two 40-volt batteries and a charger. I think we're looking at about $1,800 for that, and that is the combo kit I got. Now the saw itself does come with a 5-year warranty. I'm happy with that, that's perfect. I've actually used battery motor saws before, and the batteries blew up the inverter. Not Makita, but a different brand, so I am a bit cautious about them. I'm happy we've got that warranty to really safeguard that. And you know what, I'm actually going to change my mind about the worst thing about the saw. I was saying that it was a dust extraction port, how it gets clogged up, makes such a mess. You know what, I'm not going to say that's the worst thing. The worst thing has to be the weight. This thing weighs nearly 30 kilograms, and look, it's a big bulky saw, it's hard to move around. Benefit is right now we're working in a secluded place, so I can lock the doors. I'm going to leave this set up here for the next week or so, even while we're doing the fix. I'm not going to need this for a while, so it's going to stay here. But trying to carry it out of the work car, upstairs, set it up, it's a nightmare. It's awkward to hold, it's heavy. But I mean, from what you get from this saw though, you get the power, you get the range and the depth and the width of your cuts. It's a great saw. I do highly recommend this.